Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thanks for joining me. This is Attorney Moumita Rahman. I'm coming to you live from my weekly Monday Coffee with Moumita. I try to give you some immigration news and updates. And today I actually have some really large, some big news to give to you. So if you recall, several months ago, there was a lot of news about the new public charge rule and about the government will that the government will begin denying green cards to people who don't make enough money or who have taken certain government benefits, such as Medicaid and food stamps and all of those things. And this was a big deal because I think it was last October that the government had decided to put this new public charge rule into effect. And this would have required the filling out of a new form called Form I-944, which asks for a lot of financial history and financial information about the applicant for a green card, including such things as credit reports and a whole bunch of other things that might not even be available. And it would really heavily penalize people who have certain health conditions or who might be a little bit older and not able to work. And it would also penalize people who are under 18 and who can't really work either. So this new public charge rule is really seen to be widely meant to restrict immigration from people who might not be at a very high income or a high educational level. So that rule went out. It was supposed to go into effect last October, and it immediately got tied down in court and it was challenged, and a nationwide injunction was put forth. So what has happened today is that as of today, the Supreme Court ruled in a decision 5-4 that they are basically staying that nationwide injunction and allowing the Department of Homeland Security to go ahead and enforce this new public charge rule. What does this mean? Well, we don't know because we still have not heard anything. This decision was just issued by the Supreme Court today. So we'll find out probably tomorrow or in the next few days what the Department of Homeland Security plans to do. It's definitely going to mean a lot of upending of what we were planning on doing, because once this rule goes into effect, not only will we have to submit this new form I-944, but there will probably also be a new edition of the I-485 that will have to be filed as well. And these sort of changes, they take a lot of time to enforce and affect, but I think one thing is for sure, we're definitely going to see a lot of chaos in the next few weeks regarding this decision. Who knows, maybe tomorrow there'll be another injunction that's put in place. So as of right now, what I can tell you for sure is that the stay of the nationwide injunction has been put into effect. What this means in non-lawyer terms is that the public charge rule is now allowed to go forward and be enforced in every state except Illinois right now. So that's one thing. I thought it was very important that I let you know what's going on, because this affects pretty much everyone. And it's not fair to say that this is a fair rule, because it's really not. It really heavily penalizes people who can't work, who have certain medical conditions, who might otherwise be entitled to a green card. Now, you might have trouble bringing over your mom and dad or a relative that has some problems. So that's it. That's what I wanted to tell you about the public charge rule. And earlier this month, I said that for the month of January, I would do a special series on citizenship topics. And I was thinking, what should I talk to you about today? And recently, I don't know if any of you have heard about this new rule against birther tourism, or people who come to the U.S. To have babies. And if you've heard anything about this topic in the news recently, you may have heard that the government plans on denying visas to pregnant women or women who plan on coming to the U.S. for the express purpose of having children. So what I wanted to talk to you about today about this topic is about birther tourism. What is it? Does it really exist? And what does it mean if you're born in the U.S.? Does it entitle you to stay here A lot of us have heard this term called anchor babies, which is such a ridiculous phrase, and I'll explain to you why I think it's ridiculous. But let's talk about this rule. So lately, the guidance that's been given forth is that the Department of State, which is the agency that's in charge of issuing visas to people, will now have the right to look at and to deny B visa applications for women that they suspect will possibly have a baby in the US. And I have no idea how they plan on enforcing this, because just by virtue of being a woman who's of childbearing age, I guess anyone can have a child when they're here, right? But the other problem is that when B visas or B1, B2, which is visitor visas, when they're given, they're usually valid for a period of about 10 years. So you might have a relative that got their B visa, 5 years ago. So if somebody gets a B visa many years ago and they're all of a sudden pregnant now and they come here, well, you can just see that it's a very ambiguous sort of reason to deny a woman a tourist visa. Next is that this just raises a lot of privacy concerns, because how can you ask somebody if they're currently pregnant or if they plan on getting pregnant, and is this actually a valid reason to deny a tourist visa? I don't know. I don't think that it is. And the other thing to note is that there are a list of, I think, 20 to 30 countries that are part of the visa waiver program. And these are mostly European countries, and it includes Japan. People from, nationals of these countries do not actually have to apply for a tourist visa. They can just come in here underneath an ESTA clearance because they're part of the visa waiver program. So nationals of these countries will not be asked at all. They won't be scrutinized as to whether they plan on overstaying or if they plan on having kids over here. But that's besides the point. Let's talk about what it means to actually come to the US if you're not from here, or if you don't have residency or authority to stay here, and what happens if you have a child. Does having a child here entitle you to stay here in the US? Does it really give you status? Does it give you citizenship? Does it give you residency? The answer is no. So there's this terrible term called anchor babies, where people say that, people come here to have anchor babies. And what does this really mean? If you have an anchor baby, does that mean that you're automatically entitled to stay in the US? And the answer is no, because when you have a child over here, yes, that child by law does acquire US citizenship because of the rule of being born here. However, that doesn't confer any sort of benefits to the person having that child. So if you, as a woman from Russia or Egypt or Bangladesh, wherever you're from, if you come here and you have a child, your child will be a US citizen. However, that doesn't entitle you to anything. Maybe in the future, when that child turns 21 years old, they might be able to petition for you and help you get a green card to come stay here as well. But that's 21 years from now. And that hardly constitutes anchoring a person to the US. So it's a very derogatory phrase, and it's not well understood. And this whole concept that people come here just to have babies and unfairly give them a US citizenship, well, first of all, it's the law. If you're born here, and you're a US citizen. So I'm not sure what is unfair about that, or how that's some big conspiracy. To give the parent US citizenship or give them residency. It's just not. So that ties into my whole topic about citizenship today, and that's what I wanted to share with you. I know these are kind of looser thoughts that are slightly more news-oriented, but I thought it's important to address these topics since they're heavily in the news, and that's it. So I have a question here from Rahul. Rahul, you ask, if you already have a baby, it's not a problem, right? So if you already have a baby, I'm not too sure exactly what the context of your question is. If your baby is born here, then they're a US citizen. Hopefully you have the proper birth certificate and you've helped obtain a US passport for them. I would advise that you go ahead and apply for a certificate of citizenship as well. just so that your child doesn't have any problems in the future. But just by having a baby, it's not going to do anything much for you, maybe in the future, but definitely not right now. And, if let's say you're actually here as a tourist right now and you're about to give birth, well, it's not illegal to do that. You'll have to pay for the medical expenses out of pocket, which is another reason why I think that this is kind of a very interesting thing, that if people do come here for the express purpose of having children, the medical community is actually benefiting because the fees are being not paid by insurance, they're being paid out of pocket. So I'm sure that this is a huge source of revenue for hospitals as well right now. But anyway, that's it. That is my update for today's Monday coffee. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to pop me a note right now, or you can leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you or address your question in next week's Monday coffee. If you have any topics that you'd like to see covered, let me know. And make sure you hit like, and also make sure to keep watching my videos on YouTube. And that's it. I hope everyone has a great week. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. For proper legal advice on your case, please call us to set up a consultation.